What's going on, everyone? The Airy Lord is back. Welcome back to another Walking Dead vlog. This is not a Season 10 vlog, but actually pertaining to the Walking Dead universe and all of the moves that have recently been announced going into 2020. As we don't have any Walking Dead returning until the later parts of February, I felt that the December-January time would be a nice moment to not only do predictions for the second half of Season 10, as we did with that very long 40-minute vlog where I broke down every photograph from the still images of the trailer. But I also wanted to go over some news that was recently dropped, and it all kind of dropped at once during the mid-season finale of Season 10 of the main show. And one of those things is this new series that I had discussed a little bit called, it didn't have a name, it was just The Walking Dead 3, the third series. The first series being the original show, the second being Fear the Walking Dead, and now this new series which is called The Walking Dead World Beyond, and the first Season 1 teaser, a 30-second teaser, was dropped around, it was probably during the commercial hours of the mid-season finale, to try to get maximum exposure for all the people who are watching. Now, the best way I can describe this show is it's Stranger Things in The Walking Dead. If you merged Stranger Things and The Walking Dead, this is basically what you would get from this series. And the only reason I say that is because it looks like it's a group of kids in the apocalypse years later, if not during the events of Season 10 of the show. So while either in the time jump, the 6-year time jump from when Rick is taken in the helicopter, or during the events of the Whispers and everything going on currently in Season 10, this is what's going on. And the way it's pitched is that it's a community that has been protected and shielded from the horrors of this world, and now they're growing up and seeing what the world's like. And I'm not sure what the overall plot is going to be. As you guys know, I wasn't too big of a fan of Fear the Walking Dead. I was very hopeful going into that first season. It was pitched as prior to the apocalypse, before, while Rick was in the coma, and it was really going to break down how the world fell apart. I didn't expect them to go into how the virus started. Robert Kirkman's very protective of any of that information. His comic books, now that they're concluded, reveal none of that information on a scientific level. So I knew that Fear the Walking Dead would not start with that information, but I at least was hoping for some type of expansion upon military control, upon how the public at first reacted to all of this stuff. And you did see a little bit of that. You did see how the first news reports showed a walker eating like a paramedic who was trying to revive a guy. You had the riots in the streets of Los Angeles. For that first 3-episode stretch, but basically my issue was that when the first season concluded, which was only 6 episodes, you had the apocalypse in full swing. And it basically became seasons 2 up to 5, really, of Fear the Walking Dead turned into The Walking Dead 2.0 with characters that we cared less about. Not only that, there's been a revolving door of talent from Travis to Madison, to Nick. Now Morgan's leading the show. There's just been so many changes in direction of the show. And now so many characters from the original show, like Dwight and Morgan, are now leading the interest of the show. And Alicia is really one of the few characters from that original core group, until you basically have no idea who any of these characters are or what the direction is. Basically, not to go down this rabbit hole too much, but Fear the Walking Dead lost its way. It had an interesting premise. It basically got away from its selling point, which was what happens as the world's falling apart before the apocalypse. How does society deal with it? And you only had that for about 3 episodes, and the show completely changed its course and its direction, and basically was trying to copy what The Walking Dead was doing, but it had no source material to go off of, and it just seemed to be a clunky mess. Not only that, it changed showrunners, kind of like how The Walking Dead did, but it was very, you could, the quality The dip in quality was stark. It was a noticeable drop. And so going into this new series, to bring the point back home, I'm hoping that The Walking Dead World Beyond does not suffer from this. I'm hoping that the same showrunner sticks with this show and that they don't go through 100 different creative directions. I hope that whatever plan they have for it is kept consistent. I don't want any change in direction, trying to bring in Walking... Because I know that eventually maybe Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead characters will be introduced into this show, especially because there is a key clue and something that Scott Gimple himself confirmed, and I'm going to go through that. As we go through the images, I'll take pause to note what that is. So the first image that we have in this screenshot, I don't know the names of these characters, so I am going to be learning with you guys, and I'd rather just watch the show and find out rather than trying to do in-depth research that's going to distract me from my initial viewing. You know, I want it to be back like, the good old days before the internet existed. People would watch a new TV show. You couldn't do any research or anything. You just watched it and you figured everything out from watching the show. That's how I believe entertainment should be experienced. But it's always good to do breakdowns like this. But for now, I don't know the names of these characters. So you got this guy and this, they're all kids. You got a kid in a brown jacket, these two dark-haired girls walking amongst the ruins of these school buses. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 school buses that they're walking through the ruins of here. And then you've got this other girl who looks like Rue. If you guys have watched the Hunger Game movies, I'm not sure, that might be a stretch, but it is dystopian, kind of like this. If you guys have seen the Hunger Game movies, one of the contestants, Rue, looks a lot like this girl right here. So that's one of the first things that I thought. And she looks to have some sort of spear weapon with her. You've got the dark-haired girl again, walking through some type of corridor. I know that their living circumstances are very protected and shrouded. What'll be interesting is comparing how protected they are compared to Alexandria. Because when I thought about the premise of this show, a group of teenagers who haven't had to experience the horrors of the outside, the apocalypse, like none of these teenagers know what Henry has gone through or Lydia has gone through from the show. They haven't been in the elements. They haven't been fighting walkers. They haven't been living in a community where there's so much connection to the outside world. These kids probably grew up not having to deal with walkers at all. Their parents did it. Other military people at this compound dealt with the threat, so they never had to do it. So they were basically super sheltered. And if you guys remember back to season 5, one of the change in thematic directions in season 5 of the original Walking Dead was, how does Rick show these people that the world is something to be feared? They were living in a very protected society back when Deanna Monroe and her husband were in charge of things in Alexandria. The walls were up. They were having beer parties. If you guys remember that second half of season 5 where Rick he went a little crazy mode, he was going full Shane, trying to get them to understand how ugly the world was and that they were just living in a fantasy world. So I'm seeing some of the same themes here, but I'm just interested how it's going to be different. So one thing to keep note for. So breaking this down right here, we have this other teenager, guy number 3, blood on his face. Not sure if he's a big disgrace. I mean, again, I can only infer so much from some of these images. And then, all right, so this is that same kid with the brown jacket. I just note how well put together they are. Like, they're very clean shaven, clothes neat, tidy, hair well groomed. Like, everything's well maintained. You don't get the ugliness. For example, we could go the opposite route of what we're dealing with the Whisperers, where all of them, they take off their masks. It's drudgy, ugly, just unkempt all around. So this is the polar opposite. And again, I'm interested to see how these dynamics are going to come into play. I'm just interested if I'm going to like this concept at all. Like a bunch of kids, joking around and stabbing walkers and the thing is, someone's going to die from a walker and they're going to have like this big, like, oh my God, the world is horrible kind of thing. Like I'm interested to see how all of that is handled. Maybe they could make it interesting by going to historical landmarks. There's got to be some goal, okay? You can't... One thing, I guess, The Walking Dead suffered a little bit from, but Fear the Walking Dead especially, is that there's no end goal for a lot of the seasons, especially of Fear the Walking Dead. Like, what's the main goal of your story? I mean, every story has to have some greater purpose, some moral purpose, some plot point that's driving the action around. And so I'm hoping there is a greater purpose that we have here rather than just a bunch of teenagers goofing around, killing walkers, and reminiscing about the old days or wondering how people used to live before things went to shit. Let's see here. Going through some images. Again, I don't know any of these characters. There's just a lot of images of them fighting walkers. And I don't know how well they're going to know those walkers. Speaking of walkers, this is a gnarly-ass walker. It looks like tire tracks have grown into the side, like something's growing on the side of this guy's face. And that is absolutely disgusting. And this group right here is a giant mound of tires. It looks like this walker on the right has tar dripping over his head, down his jacket. Don't know how this is going down or what circumstances going on here. This is a cool image. Everything on fire. I don't know if this is before or after. Like, maybe this is like a flashback to when the apocalypse was happening. That's a definite possibility. But we don't have confirmation to that. What we do have confirmation of is this. And this is the image I wanted to get to. The big reveal. One of the selling points going into this show is that the group that captured Rick, the group that Jadis and the Scavengers were dealing with for all of their arrangements, the supplies, and all of that, the helicopter group is, I guess, part of this society. So they own, or their civilization, I guess Scott Gimple said the helicopter group is called the CRM, and it's 3 communities linked together. So those 3 circles that you see on the side of the helicopter they each represent a community that's linked and joined together. And there's some greater purpose that they're after. Don't know what. That's like the big plot of the movies. But this reveals the possible greater threat, maybe some of the greater plot of what's going on with Rick. Like, this is the biggest question mark, especially as The Walking Dead grows in its age and they maybe get closer to this helicopter group and or this show. It seems like every piece of Walking Dead medium, if you're talking the movies with Rick, you're talking the original show, you're talking Fear the Walking Dead, like they all have this CRM helicopter group at some point in some way. And my question is, how does this come into play? What's the greater plot here? What's the angle here? Because we see all of these kids lined up here, kind of awaiting these super soldiers to come through, and they got just standard rifles, and I like the masks. Like, they got like these black uniforms with the masks, which is really, really cool. And they take out these walkers, and in the next shot, we have this woman here. Who is she? The leader of the whole thing? Is she just a general, a colonel? All I know is that on her jacket, she has this little insignia attached with the 3 circles. So it's got to signify some leadership, especially because she doesn't have a mask. She's some type of general leading the CRM. So is she just leading this one community that these kids are a part of, or is it something else? Clearly, this is to hype up this new series because people will say, oh shit, that's the helicopter that took Rick. Will we learn more about what happened to Rick? It's funny because going through Fear the Walking Dead, when we had the helicopter stuff in the first part of season 5, which turned out to be a big fat nothing, other than that one bottle episode with Althea where we basically learn nothing. It's just a little get to know you romantic trip with that soldier Isabel, who was from the CRM. But we didn't learn much of anything else. We didn't learn what their greater purpose was or what their greater plot was, that they do have some greater mission and that whatever they're planning is going to help and save the world, but we don't know what the heck that is. Let me know what you guys think about this, because this is clearly to sell the show, to not make it seem as apart from things. Because if there was no CRM connection and this was just a show that was just kind of off in another part of the Walking Dead universe, I think some people would be interested, but you wouldn't have as much interest. This definitely ties things together and makes it more interesting. And this is what I was referencing at the beginning that was actually one of the reasons I probably made this vlog, because as you could tell, in this vlog alone, I didn't know any of those kids. I'm like, it's Stranger Things with Walking Dead. I knew none of those kids. Just a bunch of kids fighting walkers, sheltered from the apocalypse. But they're now one of the communities that is linked to the CRM. So my guess is that Rick went to a different one. So there's 3. So this series is going to focus on one. The Rick movies is going to focus on the second. Could the third one be the Commonwealth? Because I didn't like this theory. A lot of people were saying, the Commonwealth is the helicopter group. Now that there's 3 communities linked into this plot line, do you guys think that the third community, if we're going to say that the first one is in the World Beyond series, and the second one is wherever Rick is with Jadis, that's the second one we're going to focus on in the movies, do you think the third one is the Commonwealth? To me, that would make the most sense. Just logically, I think that makes the most sense, because you can use this group to tie everything together. If you ever needed to end the original show or end the movies, like this group, whatever they're trying to do wraps everything together. And really, I mean, if you think about the very first episode when Rick is riding through Atlanta on the horse and he looks up and sees a helicopter reflected in the skyscraper, they've honestly been teasing this a few times. If you guys remember the season 2 finale of The Walking Dead, when all those walkers go towards Herschel's farm, there's a helicopter that does the same thing, leads them because of the noise. There's been a couple of Easter eggs. I don't know if they had this plan from the beginning. My thinking is no. I had read an article that Andrew Lincoln had discussed leaving the show at the end of season 4, going into season 5. So probably around that point, maybe Gimple and Kirkman and the creative team got together and thought of this ulterior outside force, this greater group. But the interesting thing is this group is not in the comics. And I just want to reiterate that. Like, I have no idea what to expect. Like, the Commonwealth is in the comics as this grand society that's one city, but it's a very, very big city. But it's not like this. It's not a group that has these helicopters ferrying resources, making deals with different groups, like this group in the new series, like Jadis's group of scavengers. She's obviously had contact with them. You gotta wonder, like, where they came up with this, how they think this is gonna tie in, why they did it. Is this really the way they're gonna tie it all together? Because they look like geniuses trying to say, like, from the very first episode in the pilot, this was foreshadowed. And now you're gonna get, after all of the trials and tribulations of Fear the Walking Dead, the main show this series, we're going to get some type of answers. And will they be about the the virus. So, in conclusion, we certainly have a lot to think about. I think, I'm not going to claim that the creator, that Scott Gimple is some gigantic genius now that he's the content creator overlord of the Walking Dead series, and he's basically spearheading this group. I'm going to approach this with caution because I know that people criticize the direction he took the show in season 7 and 8 with how long the Savior arc dragged out. So I will approach this with cautious optimism, and I hope you guys do the same. Let me know what some of your predictions are and what are the plans of this group. And I've said this in a couple of different vlogs, all the ones where I talked about Rick's disappearance. I've had these theories. I had a vlog last year. It was like the ultimate Walking Dead theory. Because before, when Rick said he was or Andrew Lincoln said he was leaving the show, people just thought he was going to die. It was going to be disappointing. But then we had this, he's taking on this helicopter. Now there's going to be 3 movies that discuss it, which, by the way, are we going to get any information about the movies in 2020? I've been waiting to make a vlog about that, and I've just, as far as I'm concerned, there's actually an Instagram account that I follow that tracks fans who meet Andrew Lincoln and get fan pictures with him, and all of the pictures on this Instagram account show that he's still in the United Kingdom, and unless they're filming the show in the United Kingdom, which I doubt, he hasn't started filming. I don't know if they've started discussing this with him, but, I don't know. It's odd that there's been no activity. And the more time goes on, I just fear that Andrew Lincoln might be like, I don't know if I want to return to this universe. Maybe I'm enjoying the time off. Maybe all of the time I spent away from the show was enough to make me realize that I just want to move on and do something else. He's since done an indie film in Australia, apparently. He went to the premiere of it. But other than that, he's just been hanging around pretty low-key, kind of just, it's almost like retirement, He did these 10 years from 2010 to 2018. He did these, 8 years of the show, back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and then just kind of threw up his hands and said, you know what, I think I'm done. And he promised that this would not be the end of Rick and that he'd be in the movies, but his long absence is a little odd. It's been over a year since he left in that helicopter. If you guys remember episode 5 of season 9, we're now in the mid-season finale of 10 going into the second half. I'm just kind of confused. I don't know if Michonne's departure in the second half is going to explain any of this. Maybe by the end of season 10 we'll have some more answers, but it's just a bit confusing right now. I don't know what they're doing with Rick. I don't know what the heck they're doing with the movies. I try to look up information, but I hope that it comes to fruition and connects to the greater story. I hope there's some sort of greater plan afoot because they can, I guess, turn things around, get people's interest back up. I don't think the declining numbers, like the ratings for the original show, or anything to panic about. With AMC Premiere and so many different ways to watch this series, I think it's different. It's not the greatest measuring stick as it was in the past. In the past, I guess you could compare certain premieres and finales to each other, but now, it's a little irrelevant to do that, just saying. So, that's about it from me. Let me know what you guys think. I'm probably going to do another vlog talking about how I think Michonne will depart the show, Danai Gurira, in the second half. I mean, she's already finished filming for season 10, so she's done with it, and I've got a couple different theories, and I just want to hear what you guys think. So, that's about it from me. Thank you, guys. Let me know if are you excited for this third series? I mean, are you kind of in Walking Dead overload? It's been a long time. You follow a series for years and years and years, and you get the feeling like, certain series know when it's the perfect time to end, and Angela Kang being a new showrunner definitely, she brought life back into a show that I thought was on its last legs. And I merely, because I was a fan of the comics and knew about some of the exciting stuff coming up, I knew to stay with it. But, and so far the half of season 10 has kept that momentum. And I just hope that other people share that optimism and that they still feel excited about it and want people to do the same. And I think it's going to take something like this, like a government group on the grand scale, to really kind of loop things together, to make it make sense, to make it seem like the show was building towards something, not just people trying to meander and survive. And because there's been, I mean, think about the 1.5 year time jump we had after the war with Negan. Like, it seemed like they had conquered and they had little societies, and some people were dying to walkers, but for the most part they were able to live. And are we just going to get to a point where that's just the conclusion? Because in the comics, that's very much the ending. After the Commonwealth stuff, people just learn to live together, link communities together, and that's that. Like, Kirkman just kind of just, like, it seemed like things were just getting started, and then he's like, nah, actually, I'm done. And meanwhile, the show, like, the universe of the TV and movie world is so much grander than the comics, which is crazy. This helicopter CRM group is not in the comics, and I mentioned that already, but it's just worth reiterating that it's crazy that something that seems so important, that's linked to everything else, is not part of the happenings of the world. Like, that just blows my mind. And I just would like to ask Kirkman that. Like, did you ever think about putting this group in the comics? How did you even think of this? Is this all Gimple's idea? Like, where did this group come from, and why? And why now Rick is thrust into this group with him being ferried off on the helicopter in the movies? Like, what's the angle here? Because you took your most important character, the main character of the whole series, Rick Grimes, who has a very defined path and end, the whole comic being about him when he dies, and then it's basically the epilogue in the final Walking Dead issue. Now the show is about different characters, but at some point it might come back to Rick Grimes, but it won't be the whole Commonwealth stuff. It's going to be the helicopter group, unless the last group is the helicopter group, or the Commonwealth is the last group in the CRM, as we had predicted. So, oh boy, hope I broke that down for you guys concurrently and succinctly enough, but let me know if you have any, I mean, there's so many questions, but if you have any comments, or just put your theories up, because talking this stuff out helps me, and I hope you at least enjoyed the images, and I guess I will be watching The Walking Dead World Beyond, and I will I'm not going to do reactions, I'm just going to do reviews, just to say that up front. Just going to do review vlogs and predictions and stuff. I'll do reviews, I'll do predictions and previews if I think my interest is withholding and staying with the show, that I'm enjoying it. Certain actors make or break it. That's the thing. You have to have the right actors and talent portraying good characters with a good story and a good plot and a decent setting. Like, those are, I mean, it's all the puzzle pieces of storytelling, but they're all pertinent. You can't have one as a negative with the others as a positive. That one negative brings it all down. So, anyway, that's it from me. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe, and the next vlog will be discussing what we think will be happening with Michonne in the second half of Season 10, where it is confirmed she will be leaving the show. How will that be happening? That's next. Thank you guys. See you later.